Imagine being locked in a small, dark room by your father for the first 13 years of your life, strapped to a toilet with no human interaction or language skills, and only being fed every few days. This is the story of Genie, a girl who became known as the feral child, and whose story offers unique insights into the human mind, the will to survive, and the importance of early socialization. When Genie was approximately 20 months old in 1959, her father began keeping her in a locked room. During this period, he almost always strapped her to a child's toilet or bound her in a crib with her arms and legs immobilized, forbade anyone to interact with her, provided her with almost no stimulation of any kind, and left her severely malnourished. The extent of her isolation prevented her from being exposed to any significant amount of speech, and as a result, she did not acquire language during her childhood. As a young child, Genie's mother sustained a severe head injury in an accident, giving her lingering neurological damage that caused degenerative vision problems in one eye, and her vision problems only grew when she married Genie's father, as he prevented her from leaving home as well as beat her with increasing frequency and severity, leaving her progressively more dependent on him and his demands for Genie. Genie's father disliked children and wanted none of his own, finding them noisy and annoying. However, around 5 years into their marriage, his wife became pregnant. He beat her throughout the pregnancy and near the end attempted to strangle her to death. She was in the hospital recovering from this when she gave birth to an apparently healthy daughter. Prior to this, the couple had had 3 other children, 2 of which died from mistreatment and ignorance of medical conditions, and 1 of which had been taken away by his grandparents. When Genie was 20 months old, her paternal grandmother was killed in a hit-and-run traffic accident. Her death affected Genie's father far beyond normal levels of grief, and because his son had been walking with her, he held him responsible, further heightening his anger. When the driver received only a probationary sentence for both manslaughter and drunk driving, Genie's father became delusional with rage. Scientists believed these events made him feel society had failed him and convinced him he would need to protect his family from the outside world, but that in doing so, he lacked the self-awareness to recognize the destruction his actions caused. In the beginning, for approximately 13 hours, he tied her to a child's toilet in a makeshift harness, which he forced her mother to make. It was designed to function as a straitjacket, and while in it she wore nothing but a diaper and could only move her extremities. At night, he usually tied her into a sleeping bag and placed her in a crib with a metal screen cover, keeping her arms and legs immobilized. When the family first moved into the house, he occasionally allowed her to be in the backyard inside a small playpen, but she reportedly angered him by breaking it down to get out. The people who later worked with her interpreted this to mean she was left alone and unsupervised in it for extended periods of time. He soon decided not to allow her outside at all and kept her entirely confined to the bedroom. Researchers concluded that if Genie vocalized or made any other noise, her father would beat her with a large plank that he kept in her room. To keep her quiet, he bared his teeth and growled like a dog at her, and he grew his fingernails out to scratch her. If he suspected her of doing something he did not like, he made these noises outside the door and beat her if he believed she had continued to do it, instilling in her an intense and persistent fear of cats and dogs. As a result, she learned to make as little sound as possible and to otherwise give no outward expressions. Genie's father fed her as little as possible and refused to give her solid food, feeding her only baby food and an occasional soft-boiled egg. Genie's father kept her room extremely dark, and the only available stimuli were the crib, the child's toilet, curtains on each of the windows, 3 pieces of furniture, and 2 plastic raincoats hanging on the closet door. Throughout this time, Genie's father almost never permitted anyone else to leave the house, only allowing her brother to go to and from school and requiring him to prove his identity through various means before entering, and to discourage disobedience, he frequently sat in the living room with a shotgun in his lap. According to a neighbor, no one in the neighborhood knew about the abuse Genie's father carried out on his family, or was aware that her parents ever had a child besides her brother. Throughout this time, her father kept detailed notes chronicling his mistreatment of his family and his efforts to conceal it. Genie's father was convinced that she would die by age 12 and promised that, if she survived past that age, he would allow her mother to seek outside assistance for her. But to little surprise, he broke this promise when Genie turned 12, and her mother took no action for another year and a half. But how was she rescued? In October 1970, when Genie was approximately 13 years and 6 months old, her parents had a violent argument in which her mother threatened to walk out if she could not call her own parents. Genie's brother, by then 18, had already run away from home and was living with friends. Around 3 weeks later, on November 4th, their mother decided to apply for disability benefits for the blind in nearby Temple City, California, and brought Genie with her. But on account of her near blindness, she accidentally entered the General Social Services office next door. The social worker who greeted them instantly sensed something was wrong when she saw Genie, and was shocked to learn her true age, having estimated from her appearance and demeanor that she was around 6 or 7 and possibly autistic. And after she and her supervisor questioned Genie's mother and confirmed Genie's age, they immediately contacted the police. Her parents were arrested, and she became a ward of the court. Because of her physical condition and near-total unsocialized state, a court order was immediately issued for her to be taken to the Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Most of the information doctors received on Genie's early life came from the police investigation into her parents. Even after its conclusion, there were a large number of unresolved questions about her childhood that subsequent research never answered. News of Genie reached major media outlets on November 17th, receiving a great deal of local and national attention, and the one photograph authorities released of her significantly fueled public interest in her. Although her father refused to speak to police or the media, large crowds subsequently went to try to see him, which he reportedly found extremely difficult to handle. On November 20th, the morning before a scheduled court appearance on child abuse charges, he committed suicide by gunshot. Genie's physical condition when the doctors found her was dire. She was extremely pale and grossly malnourished, standing 4 foot 6 inches tall and weighing only 59 pounds. Her bone age was that of an 11-year-old, and despite early tests confirming she had normal vision in both eyes, she could not focus them on anything more than 10 feet away, corresponding to the dimensions of the room her father kept her in. She could neither stand up straight nor fully straighten any of her limbs, and she had very little endurance. She could not chew and had very severe dysphagia, totally incapable of swallowing solid or even soft food, and barely able to do so with liquids. Doctors found it very difficult to test or estimate Genie's mental age or any of her cognitive abilities, but on 2 attempts they found she scored at the level of a 13-month-old. Genie's receptive vocabulary only consisted of her own name, the names of a few other familiar people, and about 15-20 individual words for names of objects, and her active vocabulary consisted of 2 phrases, "Stop it," and "no more." During her stay at the hospital over a few years, she began to learn more social cues and speech. However, she still had a hard time being around other people, and only interacted with people who brought her colorful objects on a regular basis. Genie was then adopted by one of the staff, as it was noted that she was unlikely to develop any more in the hospital's care. After some time in her new foster home, reports say that Genie was pushed too hard to learn, and as a result, she refused to interact with them. She was then moved to another foster home of which her mother visited her once a week, and their relationship grew. Once Genie turned 18, she was reunited with her mother to stay in their old family home. However, after only a few months, the task of looking after Genie was too much for her traumatized mother, and was again put into multiple foster homes. During her stay in these foster homes, she was further beaten for her behavior and became nonverbal again, fearing further punishment, and was put back into multiple institutions, which harmed her even further to the point she would never recover. The last known report of her was in 2016, when she was noted as living a simple lifestyle in a small private facility for mentally underdeveloped adults and appeared to be happy, and reportedly only spoke a few words, but could still communicate fairly well in sign language. Genie's case is one of the most extreme examples of social isolation and deprivation ever documented. Her lack of exposure to language and social interaction during her critical developmental years had profound and lasting effects on her cognitive and emotional development. Despite intensive intervention and rehabilitation efforts, Genie struggled to acquire language and develop social skills. Her story sheds light on the critical importance of early experiences and environmental influences in shaping human development. Genie's strength and resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity are truly remarkable. Despite everything she endured, she has taught us invaluable lessons about the resilience of the human spirit and the power of compassion and care. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one.